Now I will be draining all the coolant, or at least most of it, enough so I can remove the head. There are different ways to remove the coolant. I have done it from the thermostat, but there's also the possibility of remove it from the radiator or the lowest hose on the radiator. Alright, all of the steps has been taken. Most everything has been removed. The only thing left is to remove this 15mm bolts. Let me show you. These bolts, this is the new one, 50mm, in order to remove the head of from the engine. I will be using an extension bar, an extension. When removing this bolt, start from the outside, go into the inside, crosswise, started from here, going over there, and coming back, till you come inside. When bolting them, it's the other way around, starting from the inside, going to the outside. Crisscross pattern. This screws needs to come out, in this case come up, so it needs to turn into this direction. So when you turn it into that direction. I will be removing one of these head bolts, starting from outside, crisscross, going to the inside. Again, outside, starting from here, going there, again to the inside. Now, a magnet, this telescopic one, proves to be pretty handy for the removal of these head bolts. There you have one. So again, as with the case with the valve cover, this is also the case applicable for the head of the engine. Look for places where you cannot damage the surface of the block or the head. For example, here is a place, or here, for you to place the crowbar and loosely or lightly try to remove the head. Like so. There's no contact with the surface of neither the head or the block. Continue this way until you remove the head from the engine or the head from the block. Alright, the head has been removed. When you are removing the head, try not to push it or pull it too fast. Maybe there are cables or whatever stuck in it. If you just pull it too fast, you may break one of those connectors. So just be gentle and patient when you remove the head. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now is the time to install the new head gasket. Make sure it's the correct one. If you see here, you see two guiding pins. One here and another one here. These guiding pins need to correspond with the head gasket over one here and the other one over here. So when you install the head gasket, make sure they are your guides for the installing of it. In my case, like I said before, the reason for replacing the head gasket is not because the engine has overheated, but because I needed to replace my valves. For the replacing of your valves, it is best to, if you can, to do it yourself or to take it to a machine shop. Okay, the head gasket has been installed. Let's now proceed with the installation of the head. Before I install the head, remember to not to forget about the gasket of the exhaust. Again, when you're installing the head, the guiding pins are your guide. The head is now installed. Remember, it should be installed thanks to the guiding pins. If it's not within the guiding pins, keep playing with it until it's installed. And watch out not to damage the surface of the head. Now it's time to bolt the head to the engine block. I will be using new head bolts. All these bolts needs to be torqued. For in this particular case, first we start with 20 Newton meters, then 60, and then 130 degrees angle. When you bolt or torque the bolts, you need to start from the inside going to the outside. Starting from 1, 2 in a crisscross pattern, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. Now I will be torquing these head bolts. I already torqued them at 20 Newton meters. In my case it's 20, 60, and then turn it 130 degrees. I already did it for 20 Newton meters, and I will start with 60 Newton meters. In order to do it, this is the torque. Here you can see all the measurements. I unlock it here, turn it to 60. As you can see here, the 0 should be aligned with the 60 Newton meters. Lock it again, and it's ready to be used. This is the sequence that I've been using, starting from 1 for the torquing of the bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. 9, 10, 11, and 12. So starting from the inside, going to the outside in a crisscross pattern. For the angle, you can be using this tool, or you can use just the clock. For example, if you need to do it 90 degrees, you're pointing with your extension bar this direction, you know you need to turn it until it's 90 degrees. If it's 130 degrees, you start whenever you want, let's say at 3 o'clock, and you need to end at, this is 90, at for approximately 8 o'clock, 130 degrees. And that's it for torquing the head or the head bolts of the head. Remember to reinstall this pipe from the turbo here behind the engine head. Now we'll be installing all the screws for the exhaust. It will be difficult for me, like I said before, to show it to you on the camera, but when you are installing it, use a mirror if necessary to check all the screws and install all of them. Now we'll be installing the bracket for the engine mount. Alright, the head has been installed, the exhaust has been placed, also the bracket is this one for the engine mount, and now we'll proceed with the installation of the intake. After installation of the intake, we'll be placing back the fuel rail and the air intake box. But first, let's continue with the air intake. When you install the intake, install also this pipe here from the turbo. It's connected on the intake here, slides in it, and also this breather pipe down here, this one. And then you can proceed with further installation of the screws of the intake. Alright, the intake has been installed. All the 6 screws, 10mm bolts, have been installed. It should be torqued at 19 Newton meters. And now we'll proceed with the installation of the fuel rail. Fuel rail needs to be installed here with the injectors, 5 of them, and held in by this 10 to 10mm bolts. Also the fuel rail pipe needs to be installed right here with also 2 10mm bolts, one here and the other one over here for the fuel pipe, the supply pipe. Okay, let's install this one. Okay, the fuel rail has been installed. If you have difficulty placing the fuel injectors, you can place some WD-40 or some lubricant on the O-rings. Make sure the O-rings are installed. Put some lubricants and it will install more easily. Okay, now it's time to install the air intake box. As you can see, I've always leave the screws where they belong. So now I just take them off, install the air intake box and screw them on. So let's install this one. Do not forget also to install back this air intake hose from the turbo. It's a flat screwdriver. The bolts themselves need to be snug. 10mm bolts here from the air intake box needs to be snug. For the following step, I will be installing back the 2 cam shafts.